All right, in today's video, we're going to talk about the differences between power raking a lawn and aerating a lawn. They're two very different things. There are reasons to do one or the other or both. Let's get into it. First of all, it's important to keep in mind that both aerators and dethatchers or power rakes are designed by purpose to disrupt the upper layer of the soil profile. But the difference here is that a dethatcher or a power rake is going to score and rip and drag and scrape the upper quarter inch. We're taking a quarter inch of the soil profile underneath the leaf canopy of your lawn, while the aerator machine is going to be punching holes 2 to 3 inches deep into the soil profile. But each hole is going to be separated by a few inches between the holes. So if you collectively add up the square footage disrupted by an aerator, it's approximately 6% of the lawn surface, whereas a dethatcher is going to disrupt the vast majority of the lawn surface, but much less deep. Now here I've recently aerated the lawn. You can see little holes all over the place. If you do look very close in between all of the grass blades, you're going to find that there is grass, and then there is surface debris, which is generally leaves and grass clippings. And then under the surface debris is a thatch layer, which is typically made of roots and rhizomes that are growing barely above the soil level, but underneath the leaf canopy. Essentially, you're looking at grass followed by dead grass clippings, followed by thatch, followed by soil. Now, there's nothing at all wrong with having thatch in the lawn. In fact, it's a healthy thing. This is where a lot of biology really starts its life. A lot of the microorganisms and fungi start in the thatch layer. We just don't want too much thatch. If we have too much thatch in the lawn, then that prevents water from penetrating through the thatch into the soil itself. It also prevents fertilizers and nutrients from getting down into the soil where the grass actually needs it. We don't want the grass root systems growing in the thatch layer. We want the grass root systems growing in the soil underneath the thatch. So long story short is we want the thatch layer to be there, but we want the lower part of the thatch layer to constantly be decomposing and becoming part of the soil. If you know anything at all about composting, then you know that you need oxygen and moisture to get things to decompose. And the thatch layer needs to be moist and oxygenated to be able to decompose. So both a power rake and a core aeration device can come into play and help this process along. A power rake is literally going to score. It's going to rip little tiny, thin, skinny like cuts into the thatch layer to break it apart a bit. It's going to introduce a little bit of oxygen into those upper layers, while a core aeration device is going to open up entire channels and remove small sections of thatch altogether. Regardless of how you look at it, both core aeration and power rakes are going to introduce extra oxygen into the thatch layer to help it decompose more efficiently. Now, if you do run a lawnmower over your lawn regularly throughout the year, but don't bag the clippings and you mulch those clippings right back onto the lawn, then a lot of those clippings are going to sit on top of the thatch layer. And if you don't mow very often, then those clippings are usually going to be quite big. If you mow frequently, then they're teeny tiny and they break down very efficiently. But big clippings are a problem because they dry out and then they start accumulating. One of the biggest benefits of power raking is that it actually removes a lot of the largest debris that is not breaking down in the lawn the way it's supposed to. And at the end of winter, it's a fantastic way of pulling all of the dead debris off of the soil surface so that your soil can warm up and start performing in an aerobic environment as opposed to an anaerobic environment in the absence of oxygen. Now here in my lawn and all of the lawns that I've managed in the past, I always recommend core aerating 2 times every single year. I recommend at the very end of winter or the very beginning part of spring so that we can capitalize on the grass's natural tendencies to want to put on new root growth. If we're pulling physical cores out of the ground right in the root zone, then compaction is going to be minimal, and it's going to be extremely easy for the roots to spread into new spaces and potentially deeper into the ground. The additional airflow of aeration is going to spur additional microbial activity in the lawn. This is activity that is needed for our grass to uptake nutrients properly. Many nutrients can't even become plant available until microbial life makes them plant available. And microbial life will always be stunted. There is an absence of air. As an added benefit of aeration, we are physically removing roughly 6% of the thatch layer every time we core aerate. This is particularly beneficial for lawns that have stoloniferous or rhizomatic growth habits. That would be virtually all warm season grasses, Kentucky bluegrass, bent grass, creeping red fescue. And if you have issues with keeping the lawn wet and irrigated, then running a power rake over it to continually increase airflow into the mat of thatch will benefit you in the long run. Now here in my new lawn, I actually just ran the power rake over this lawn a few times over the past month or so, getting as many of the old stems and stolons up off the ground so that I could cut them. One major benefit of running a power rake over your lawn is that you can actually pick up stems and stolons off of the dirt that you can cut with your lawnmower at a later time. If you never cut those stems, then they are always going to be brown, and your lawn is always going to have a hue of brown to it every time you cut it. I have pruned many of my stems and stolons way back over the past month or two, and I have recently core aerated to introduce that oxygen flow. I recommend doing both. And in the long run, if you do both activities, your lawn will benefit in ways that are hard to express in words.
Now to core aerate properly, you want to get at least 20 cores per square foot. So if you're using a big machine like the one that you see back there, then you kind of got to look at it with a measuring stick and do a little bit of math. It's super easy. Now getting up close to this guy, this is 14 inches across, like the working width. And then if you put a plug straight down and then push the machine forward and measure how long it takes for that plug to circle all the way back around and get to the ground, then that'll show you the full cylinder path, the distance. For this particular machine, it's 36 inches. So that means every time that cylinder with all of the core tines on it circles around, I'm covering a 36-inch path, 14 inches wide. And this particular machine has 24 coring tines on the cylinder, which means I'm getting 24 cores for every 36 by 14 inch strip. Converting that to square feet, I actually need to do roughly 4 passes across the same area to get more than 20 cores per square foot. Now instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm going to go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then start going this way, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. By doing that, I'm going to have plenty of stagger. Not that I could keep this thing exactly in line to begin with, but I'll have plenty of stagger, and I'm going to end up getting a lot of cores per square foot. It's going to be somewhere in the vicinity of 20 to 25 cores per square foot. All right, every aerator machine is going to be different. This is the first time I've ever used that particular model. I've used others in the past. This one does not like any kind of side-to-side slope, even if it is very, very small. So over here, it's mostly flat, but it's just too slopey to use that. So over here, I'm going to have to manually aerate, especially over here, because the ground kind of wants to go like that a little bit, and I just can't get it over there. I avoided my fill hole here and the middle of my fill hole there in the middle, but everywhere along the edges I'll have to manually core aerate with one of those like plunger tools. But you can see, doing many passes over everything, I've got a lot of holes and a lot of mess, not to mention messes on the sidewalk. Notice everything is wet. It's easier to core aerate if your lawn is damp. Hi guys. Since things are wet, I personally am going to rake them off and take them to the backyard because I got some low spots back there that I want to use the cores to bring the ground up to grade. And then I'll give you the after shot here. It's actually going to look way better than you think it's going to look once it's all done. Cool machine, but seriously, I wanted to go this way across the whole thing, but it's just too much of a slope for it. So as I was going this way, it just wanted to lean ever so slightly and then the motor would die. Keep that in mind. If you rent yourself an aerator and you can't keep the thing started, it might be because you've got too much of a slope on a side to side. You got to go up and down the slope. Right now, for power raking the lawn, I recommend doing this, I don't know, 2 times a year at most. This doesn't have to happen very often. In my cool season lawn up north, the lawn that I lived in before this one, I only power raked it about 1 time a year. Down here, I'll probably do it twice a year simply because I've got a lot of stoloniferous growth on top of the lawn soil. And although stolons are a good thing, I don't want them to turn into a spongy mat. Some people out there suggest doing it at the end of summer, going into fall. I personally think that the beginning of spring or the end of winter is one of the better times to power rake, and I tend to suggest almost everyone to start power raking on a higher setting than the lowest setting that your machine offers. I like to cut my lawn a little bit smaller before I do it. If it's at the end of winter, you don't really have to worry about that. But if you power rake a little bit higher than normal, then that's going to pick up the grass a little bit, so then you can run the lawnmower right over it and bag it all up. The end of winter, that's going to pull up all of the debris that never broke down from the previous fall, and it's going to allow your mower to actually cut a lot of those brown winter dormant tips. The leaf burn that's happened over the winter is going to cut it right off, so that a lot of the green is going to start showing up. Now again, I've done both power raking and core aeration. I've done it manually and mechanically. I've done these things enough to know a lot about both processes. I have dedicated videos to both tasks. Up here in the upper corner is my video about how to mechanically core aerate your lawn. Go ahead and take a look at that if that's really what you think you need to get done first. Down here in the lower corner is my video about how to make your lawn look its best by using a power rake. There's also supplemental videos linked in the description below that describe some of the actions that you should do or could do before and after both of these processes.